everybody. My name is Alan. I'm the product manager at Bubble, and I'm super excited to be here to share a little bit with you all about what exactly is the power of no-code that we often talk about, and to share with you a little bit more about Bubble, its capabilities, and some of the Bubble success stories, so that you can get an idea of what folks out there are doing with no-code. So without further ado, let's talk about what is this no-code phenomenon that everybody's talking so much about. And hopefully, if you're here at the conference, you'll already be familiar with a lot of this. But in a nutshell, we are excited about no-code because it is such a major change from how software was written in the past. In the past, and even to some extent today, in order to write software, in order to make an idea you have real on the digital world, you had to know how to code, and there really wasn't a way around that. Even if you had the most amazing idea out there, even if you had the most connections, the most hustled that could help that idea become a big thing, you had to either know how to code or you had to hire people who knew how to code. And the big dramatic change that no-code brings about is that it democratizes software development. You no longer need to learn how to code. And what this means is that more and more people can actually build their ideas. So this steep learning curve of knowing software development and coding is no longer a barrier. So what can you do today with no-code? This is a list that's constantly growing, which is super exciting to see. But you can do things ranging from building a landing page to a blog to an online shop to something even really full-blown with complex logic and workflows. You can also build databases of varying complexities. You can build workflows to connect different data sources. And today, you can even build a machine learning model without code. And again, these capabilities are growing every day because it seems like every week there's a new, really cool no-code startup coming onto the scene. So with so many different no-code tools out there, you might be thinking, how do you make sense of the entire landscape? How do you think about different no-code companies and how to categorize their different capabilities, basically? So this is a very rough framework. It is not meant to be scientific at all, but it's something that I came up with just to help me better understand the different companies out there. And the framework basically divides no-code capabilities into three categories. On the one hand, you have design, which means designing basically a front end or a web page that can be live on the web. The second bucket is data, working with data visually, getting more out of your data. And the third bucket is logic. So how do you express logical statements like, if this happens, then this other thing should happen. Or if the user does this, then X, Y, and Z should happen. So this is a very rough framework. And you can begin to start categorizing no-code companies based on this Venn diagram. So if we start with design, this is really where a lot of really the first generation of no-code tools started. So you have a lot of big names here like WordPress and Wix and Squarespace. You have also a new generation of these kinds of tools. Landon and Card with 2 R's are 2 examples of much newer startups that have just amazingly beautiful experiences for designing beautiful web pages. And those are all very cool tools. You also have some big names like Webflow and Shopify, which definitely help a lot with design. And they also begin to go a little bit into the data bucket as well. With Webflow, you not only are able to create a beautiful landing page, but you can also connect it with basically a CMS. So you could create something like a blog, and that is very much working with data. And Shopify, some people may not think of Shopify when they think of no-code, but what Shopify is doing is allowing people out there to very easily create e-commerce web experiences. So you can not only design what your online store looks like, but of course, an online store has a lot of data backing it. You need data about the products, you need data about the transactions, And Shopify really tries to simplify a lot of that, and they've been super successful at doing so. So that's kind of very broadly the design bucket. There are also some pretty notable names in the data category. So, of course, Airtable is a giant here. They have a beautiful product that makes working with data very fun. You have players like Coda. And I also wanted to mention a really cool startup that we've had the pleasure to partner with called Pelterion. They are building a no-code tool for building machine learning models. And so, it was only a matter of time for no code to impact machine learning, and they are doing a pretty good job of it. And if we look at the third bucket of logic, you have some notable names here like If This and That and Zapier. And these tools are really interesting. They sort of approach no code from yet another different direction because they let you connect different data sources. They have their own user interface, of course, to set up their connections, but they don't really help you create a web presence or a web page, so to speak. But they're doing a lot of works behind the scenes to implement the kind of logic that you might want for whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. And then, of course, there are players who are trying to mix the different buckets. So Bubble is an example here, as we will dive into in a little bit. But there are also some other players trying to play in this space as well. So we have folks like Adalo and Glide. They also have beautiful products. They're quite good at what they do as well. And so it is by no means a monopoly in any sense. There are a lot of tools out there that are providing users the kind of no-code capabilities that this movement really promises. So that's a lot about what no-code tools can do and which no-code tools exist. So you might be asking yourself, what can't no-code do today? And this was actually kind of a hard list to pull together because no-code tools are popping up every day, and the capabilities offered by no-code tools are also increasing every day. So this list may change, it may very well be wrong, but from what I know at least, one thing that doesn't seem to exist yet is a no-code tool that will both create an app, store that app's data, and build machine learning models sort of on top of it. So that's a lot of and statements. Because you definitely have no-code players doing individual pieces of that. I'm just not sure if there's a no-code tool that does all of that all in yet. Another thing which doesn't seem quite possible yet with no-code tools is if you're building a very visuals-heavy game design. So if you were trying to create the next StarCraft or Halo or League of Legends, no-code can't really do that quite yet. A third thing might be backend management. So if you wanted to have a no-code tool to manage a lot of scaled infrastructure, so like spinning up a lot of AWS servers of different kinds, doing different things, I'm not sure I've seen that no-code tool quite yet, although I think for that one, it's really just a matter of time if it doesn't exist already. And then the fourth thing is if you are basically building a Google, something at that scale, at global scale with billions of users. I don't think anybody has quite tried to do that yet with a no-code tool, although again, I think that will be a matter of time. It's also worth pointing out that no-code eliminates one of the big obstacles to creating a company or an experience online, but it can't do the hustle for you. And I imagine a lot of folks tuning in to this conference are really keen on working on their own businesses or their own side projects. And I think no-code tools can really help you and enable that in ways that were never possible before. But there still is a lot of hustle behind any of these ideas. So props to all of you who are going through that journey. Cool. So let's dive in a little bit more about Bubble. And I'm certainly biased. I think Bubble is an awesome tool. But we also just wanted to highlight Bubble's capabilities to show you just what is possible today with no-code tools. So Bubble, for those of you who aren't familiar with us, we're a no-code platform to build powerful web apps without code. So that sounds like a simple statement. But what does that mean exactly in terms of capabilities and what Bubble can actually build? So again, Bubble tries to be at this intersection between design, data, and logic. So there are capabilities in all three of those buckets offered by Bubble. And we definitely have a few more other major aspects as well. So the first one, just to dive in again a little bit deeper, is what can you do design-wise in Bubble? So design offers a what you see is what you get editor. You drag and drop different elements to build your app. You can fully control how your pages look, both on desktop web as well as mobile web, meaning you can change the responsive look of your app. You can also have your web pages display dynamic data, meaning showing real-time data coming from your app's database. And Bubble comes with a lot of building block elements, things like text boxes and buttons and input fields that you might want. But there's also an ecosystem where other developers can build even more powerful elements. Next, if we dive into the data category, Bubble is a bit unique in the sense that every app comes with a database, and the database is actually a big part of the app building experience. So you have full control over your Bubble app's data structures. So you can declare any number of data objects, or what we call data types. You can specify what fields each of those types have. And you can actually see the contents of your database within the Bubble editor, which is the screenshot you see here. Everything about the database is real time, meaning that as your users are interacting with your app, data is being written to the database or modified in the database, and those changes will show up in real time to that user and other users. And we also have this very useful feature around setting privacy rules. Privacy and data security in general are obviously very big topics nowadays and very important. And you can fully control which users or what characteristics of users are allowed to see or edit different kinds of data in your database. So that's a big feature that we like to emphasize to users. And of course, given all the data in your database, you can create different kinds of searches and queries with filters and sorting and all the different kinds of bells and whistles. And the last pillar out of the three is workflows. So this is where you can express logic in your Bubble app. And as you can see from the screenshot, these take the form of statements like, when X happens, do A, then B, then C. So we basically have a library of different kinds of events that can trigger a workflow, and a library of different kinds of actions that a workflow can do. These workflows can even run in the backend, so to speak, so that they can run independently of a page that a user is actively on. You can call external APIs in workflows and also on the front end. And this allows for a lot of really interesting power and features. So a very common one, of course, is the ability to monetize your app by collecting payments via something like Stripe. I also wanted to give a shout out to the Bubble ecosystem. So, we're certainly not going at it alone. We have lots of users who have contributed back to the ecosystem. And we have both a plugin marketplace and a template marketplace. On the plugin side, we do have a lot of integrations with other big names you might have heard of. So players like Stripe and Figma and Airtable, Google, Facebook, etc. And we also have plugins that just simply extend the functionality of the Bubble app building experience, not necessarily integrating with a third party. And on the template side, we have a lot of pre-built apps that really give users a jumpstart on building different kinds of apps for different kinds of use cases. And Zeroqode is a huge player there. So a common question we get is Bubble the right tool for you? And we will be the first to admit that Bubble is not always the right tool. You can build a lot of different things with Bubble, but Bubble really shines when some of these characteristics are true about your idea. So if you want, for example, a logged in versus logged out experience, Bubble is great at handling that. If it's important that your idea has a database and that your users can interact with the data and your web app shows live data, again, Bubble can do that very well. If you need logic-based workflows or conditions, so if the user has this characteristic, do X, Y, and Z, but if the user does not have that characteristic, do A, B, and C. Bubble does all of that very easily. If you're building an experience that's web-based, which does include mobile web, but you don't need a native mobile app, Bubble should definitely be a tool you consider. And if you're looking for an experience for your users that connects to external APIs, Bubble can definitely help you there. So that was just a lot of explanation about Bubble, but I actually wanted to do a quick demo to show you all just what Bubble looks like and feels like. So here I'm starting a Bubble app from a completely blank screen. And we are going to try to build a very, very simple clone of Twitter. And I will be the first to warn you that I do not have the world's best design skills, but I think you'll get a sense of the different capabilities of Bubble. So again, I've already started from just a blank canvas. So everything's completely blank. And the first thing I'll show you is that you have here the what you see is what you get editor that I was mentioning before. So I just selected text box. I can draw it here, and I can do something like welcome to my Twitter clone. You can also, of course, style this text in any different way. We have a concept of styles, which is kind of like CSS styles, so that you can reuse the same set of styling parameters as you go. And I'm just going to resize this. So this is the design tab. I will also sort of just show you quickly the workflow tab, which is where you will create these, when this happens, do X, Y, Z statements. We'll create one of those in a little bit. And you have the data tab here. You will notice right off the bat that there is already something in the data tab. So this is what we mean when we say that every Bubble app comes with the concept of a user from the get-go. So this exists by default. Your app is ready to have users of its own if that is part of what you want in your experience. And we identify users by emails here. So of course, no two users can have the same email, et cetera, et cetera. So great. So we have just a text box on the page so far. And the first thing I'll do after that is just insert this header. This is, again, a default sort of reusable element. And what I'll do now is actually show you the preview of this. And so this is also kind of a unique capability, which is that you can instantly preview your app at any point in time as you're building it. And you'll notice that we give all these apps a live URL. So you could theoretically share this development preview if you wanted to. And this is the test version, or what we call the development version of your app. So this is exactly what I was just building. You'll notice that in the header here, we by default just offer this button to bring the user to the sign-up flow. So maybe I'll just create a test account here, and I will sign up. And you'll notice that this button has changed to say log out, signifying that I am signed in. And to make extra sure that that happened, we can go to our app's data. And if we click on all users, yep, you'll see that this is exactly the account I just created with my Bubble app. So that's kind of just a quick demo of how you have a fully functional logging in, logging out user creation flow with really just a couple clicks of a few buttons. So next thing, let's actually start building some of the flows we need for our Twitter clone. So of course, we want the capability to tweet. So I just drew a multi-line input. Maybe I'll say type your tweet here as the placeholder. One key thing about Twitter is that there is some kind of a limit on character count. So maybe we will just show that to the user here. So I'll say, I want this text box to show the character count. And so I've not only added that label, but I can also insert dynamic data. And in this case, I want to insert the input field's values, number of characters. And so that should reflect how long the current entry in this input field is. And we'll see that in action in a second. And we're going to need a button to save the tweet. So if we, again, go back to our preview page, there's a little warning that our app has changed since we were last here, which is great. So I will refresh. We see the new things I drew. And this is a long tweet. We can kind of start using this interface. And you'll notice here, a cool thing is that this character count is actually updating to reflect what I'm typing here. If I click the Save button, actually nothing happens yet because I haven't built that part. So we can go back here, and for the Save button, we can start a new workflow. So we are now beginning to declare a workflow that tells Bubble what should happen when a user clicks the Save button. So stepping back for a moment, I think to myself, OK, when the user clicks the Save button, I basically want to record the tweet or save the tweet into our database. So my personal preference is that I like to make sure the database is set up for that first. So I'm going to go here to my database and define that my app will have a tweet data type. All data types come with a few default fields. So for example, it automatically saves who created it, when it was last modified, when it was created. I'm going to create a new field here for the contents, which is text that will be saved. Cool. So if I go back to the workflow that was just started, when the user clicks Save, I am going to create a new thing. Thing is the term we use for a row or an entry in our database. And I want to create a new tweet where the contents are equal to that input's value. So this will take what the user typed in that input and save it to a new row in the database, a new thing, as we call it. And just to make the user experience a little bit smoother, I'm going to say that after that is saved, I'm just going to reset inputs so that that input field clears. So if we go back here to the preview, let me try saving the tweet again. This is a first tweet in this app. We are 33 characters, and I'm going to click Save. So the input field has reset itself as we would have expected, given the workflow I built. And let's just check the database to make sure that that tweet's saved. So now you see that there's the ability to see all the tweets in my app's data. And indeed, here is that first tweet that was created. So cool. So we have the ability for users to create tweets. How do we show users all the tweets that might exist? We can create something that we call a repeating group. This is basically how you create a list sort of interface that shows the user data coming from your database, for example. So in this repeating group, I want to show tweets as the type of content. And for data source, this is where I can essentially write a query for our database for exactly which tweets to show. So I'll say, do a search for tweets. I could add constraints here if I wanted to, which are filters on the search. But I think I'm fine showing all the tweets for now. But I do want to sort by created date descending, which means I want to show the latest tweets first at the top of the list. So now this repeating group is primed to show a list of tweets. So each of these rows, or we call them cells, will show a given tweet. We just need to tell the cell what about the tweet to show. So maybe I will draw a big text box here and say I want to show the tweet's contents. Maybe I'll also draw a text box under it to show the tweet's creator's email, just so people can know who it was by. And I'll draw one more text box here to show the current self's tweets, creation date, and I just want it to look a little bit prettier, so I'll format the date in this style. And maybe I'll make this a little bit bigger. Cool. So let's take a look and see what happens now. Awesome. So this seems to be working as expected. So we see the first tweet that I created just now in this list. It is the only tweet in our database so far. So let's just see what happens if we create a second one. So this appears to be working. It's showing all the tweets. It's showing the newest ones at the top. It's showing the contents, the creator, and the creation date. So this already is a very bare bones but working prototype. I'll just show one more thing, which is kind of a cool, fun little riff. I'm going to try to monetize my Twitter clone. Maybe we'll ask users to pay if they want to tweet something that's very long. So if I go to plugins, this is where I can search for different plugins out there. There are some by Bubble, as we see this Stripe plugin is. There are also various plugins by a lot of our ecosystem participants. So I'm going to install the Stripe app here. And this is where I would input all the different keys that I need for Stripe. So let me just pull those up. So I have some test Stripe keys over here, which I'm going to paste in. And since we have supplied keys and installed the Stripe plugin, we basically have unlocked the ability to use all of these payment actions. So in this particular case, we want to charge the current user, and maybe I'll just make that first in the workflow here. Let's say I want to charge them $10, only when the inputs values number of characters is greater than 140. Meaning, if somebody tries to type in a tweet that's longer than 140 characters and they try to save that tweet, we will try to charge them $10. So let's see how this is working. Oh, and actually maybe for description, I'll just say for being too wordy. And let's just see how this works here. Okay. Okay, great. So this is a long tweet. It is over 200 characters. And I'm going to click Save. And there we go. This is the Stripe pop-up. If you've seen it before, you'll see that we have some info. And this is just literally the Stripe experience from here. Stripe will handle all of the credit card processing and the payment flow. So cool. That's basically a very quick demo of Bubble. We walked through designing the app, setting up a workflow, looking at our app's data, and we even integrated a very quick and hacky sort of way to monetize our site from there. So hopefully that gives you all a sense of kind of the building blocks that Bubble offers. Bubble offers a lot of building blocks. And we are, frankly, often very constantly surprised by the ingenuity and the creativity of a lot of our users. So that dovetails well with the last major section of content, which is what are some Bubble success stories? And I chose a handful of different kinds of apps, different kinds of creator backgrounds, different stages of ideas, partially to show you all what's what our users are doing here at Bubble, but also partially to just showcase the range of things that are possible today with no code. So first, I wanted to highlight some examples of makers achieving scale. And of course, scale means different things to different people, to different ideas. But we've certainly seen Bubble users having a decent amount of success with some of their ideas. So the first idea here that I wanted to highlight is an app called Coins. It's a financial platform, so a fintech idea, that helps people pay off their debt faster. This group of Bubble users has chosen to actually mix no-code tools, which is something we see often and which is actually a great idea. You can use the right no-code tool for the right purpose. In this case, they used Bubble for their mobile app, where they wanted this concept of a user, data about a user, and a certain experience for a given user. But they chose to use WordPress for their landing page, and that's great. Maybe they were just more familiar with WordPress or liked WordPress's capabilities for front-end design. Totally cool. This app has actually seen a good amount of success. They've managed to raise a decent angel round. And a cool fact is that their customers have paid off over $12 million in debt. So they're actually making a meaningful impact for their end users. An app in a completely different industry is one called Ocean Air. This is a tourism idea for purchasing tours, activities, and other kinds of packages in the Middle East. Their background is a bit different. Instead of building an experience completely from the start, Ocean Air actually existed beforehand as a PHP site, and they wanted to move fully onto Bubble for a variety of different benefits, like being able to iterate faster, being able to spend less on sort of engineering resources, et cetera. So they actually launched their rebuild in the midst of COVID, which was a brave decision. And they have already won a number of awards in the travel industry. So that's a cool story there. The third one is an app called Incentive. This is a SaaS product, so yet another industry, a SaaS tool that helps companies measure and assess their brand performance. This tool, they started it and built it entirely on Bubble, and they've already onboarded over 50 companies. And moving on to yet another industry, we have Armadillo Rent. These are from some users in Mexico who wanted an experience to offer construction companies the ability to find and rent equipment. They also chose to mix no-code tools. So they built their landing pages on Webflow, and they built their main app on Bubble. They've been able to raise a couple rounds of VC funding, and they are also about to branch out into a full credit service, so actually offering loans to their customers, which is a cool development. So those were some companies that had already achieved some amount of scale. But of course, we also have a lot of customers who are earlier in the journey, who are trying to use Bubble to build an idea quickly to find product market fit. And we see a lot of really fun ideas here as well. So the first one here is an app. I believe this user has a developmental psychology background. He wanted to build an app for parents to help with the behavioral goals of their children. And what's cool about this story is that this was kind of a COVID passion project. Since the start of COVID, this user realized that parents will be spending a lot more time with their kids. And so he had this idea for an app, and he has built it and gotten it into beta all since the start of COVID. So that's a pretty quick turnaround time. The next story is an even faster turnaround time, actually. This is, again, relating to the experience of children during the pandemic. But this relates to parents looking for educational resources. They wanted to build with Bubble because it could build an app for both desktop and mobile web experiences. And they actually managed to get off the ground with their prototype and with their app in just a little over a month. Third example here, just to show that you can also move quickly with SaaS ideas, is a product called Think Confluent. This relates to employers and how they manage their employees. And even in these early stages, they already have a decent amount of traction. They've managed to get over 100 companies pre-registered, and they are looking forward to touching over 300,000 employees between those companies. So they've done a great job not only building their app, but really putting in the hustle to find those initial customers. And another idea here is from the esports industry, esports tournament and community management. Award Pool has a pretty cool experience, and they've already been featuring over 200 tournaments on their app. And right now they are wrapping up their angel round of funding, the last we heard. So again, we've seen a number of different examples here. I purposely chose examples from a variety of different industries to show you how versatile some of these building blocks can be. And I've tried to show you ideas from different kind of creator backgrounds. So some of these users come from completely non-tech backgrounds and were able to build their idea through Bubble, which is, again, speaking to the promise of no-code. I wanted to highlight just a couple more examples because we do see a lot of examples from Bubble users who are trying to start businesses or side projects that they intend to monetize. But what's really cool and inspiring for us here on the Bubble team is that we also see a lot of apps that are trying to do some good in the world. Just two examples, and pardon me for picking slightly US-centric examples, but the first one I wanted to highlight is a web experience called Plenty Black. That promotes and showcases various Black-owned businesses worldwide. Obviously, racial justice and racial equality are major topics, at least here in the United States. And this is built by two Bubble users who felt very passionately about that. And they wanted to have a meaningful impact on that issue, on that topic. And they chose Bubble because they thought it would be the best tool to help them get off the ground quickly, to not get bogged down in a really long build process, so that they can have meaningful impact sooner. And it's been a real pleasure sort of following their story. They've already had a few dozen companies sign up just in their first weekend, and they are really building their app. And then the other one I wanted to highlight is this tool called Elect Smart. This is focused on US elections, but these two Bubble users wanted a portal to offer just relevant information about upcoming elections and pressing political issues. I don't believe they have any intent to monetize this, but they just wanted to put something out there that could do some good in the world. So, we love our Bubble users who are trying to build businesses or side hustles, but we very much are also inspired by folks who are just trying to do something good, have a meaningful, positive impact in the world as well. So this is really, we think, just the beginning of the no-code movement. We've seen a variety of different ideas, a variety of different backgrounds of our users at all different stages of success. But we really, truly believe this is just the beginning of the no-code wave. There are so many no-code tools coming onto the market, approaching these challenges of traditional software development in just very innovative new ways. And we're starting to see more and more attention being paid to the no-code space from those who have never heard of it before. So the fact that you are here at this conference probably means that you are definitely on the earlier side of this curve. But we at Bubble think this is truly going to be a transformational development in sort of the history of the internet. We think we're going to see just a lot more people being able to build out their ideas, being able to make their idea for a business or a side project real. And it will no longer be a question of whether you can find the resources to hire developers or take the months or even years to learn coding. You will be able to pick up a no-code tool. You'll be able to choose from a toolbox full of different no-code tools and find just the right one for your particular idea. And you'll be able to get off the ground very quickly. And so we are really excited to see how this evolves. And we are super thankful to the entire community for joining us on this journey.